Ned Nwoko and Regina Daniels are back in the news, and this time the reason is beyond shocking. If someone had told you that an arrest could touch Regina Daniels' own family again, you probably wouldn't believe it. And yet, that is exactly what is happening right now. According to Regina, her brother Sammy and several other family members are being targeted over an allegation that they stole $40,000. But that's not all. Tiny Devil Ann, the woman previously labeled as Regina's so-called supplier, has also reportedly been arrested. And yes, there is a video of her arrest circulating online. Her involvement adds another layer to this already explosive situation. So how did we get here? How did the family dispute escalate into arrests involving close associates, old allegations, and public exposure? That's exactly what we're going to break down today. We're going to analyze the timing, the escalation, and the possible reasons behind why this is happening now, and what it tells us about leverage, control, and high stakes in personal conflicts. To understand what's happening now, we first have to look at their history. Regina Daniels walked out of a 6-year marriage and she didn't look back. She moved to the UK amidst a storm of allegations coming from both sides. Both Regina and Ned made claims about one another, and while we weren't there to verify those allegations, what we do know is that Regina left the marriage and moved abroad, currently living with her elder brother. But what's critical in all of this is that she didn't live with her children. Custody of her kids was taken away. For a long time now, Regina has not had access to them, according to her. According to what Ned presented in court, he had already won custody, and the court ruled that Regina was not capable of being with the kids. The reason given, again, according to the court filings that Ned made public, was evidence that she was allegedly on drugs. Now, we cannot confirm this independently, we weren't there, and we can only rely on the public records and statements made by both parties. But the outcome was clear. Regina was denied custody and access to her children. Conditions were set for her to regain access. Those conditions, as Ned himself posted online, involved therapy and rehabilitation. But importantly, therapy under his own supervision through programs he was spearheading. Essentially, she was restricted from pursuing rehabilitation outside of what he approved. Regina refused these conditions and she left for the UK. Recently, however, Regina took a bold step. She went to a reputable hospital in the UK to conduct a drug test, purely to check if there was any substances in her system. When the checks came back, her system was clear. She was clean. No mind-altering substances was found in her system. This moment was significant because it challenged a key pillar of the argument that had denied her custody initially. Naturally, Ned responded, and in fact, we already examined that in a previous video where we looked at the patterns in his responses, how he always reacts at the first inkling of any action, how these responses themselves become events worth analyzing. That video is on the channel and you can check it out for a deeper understanding. But here's where things take another turn. Just the day after Regina's drug test result went public, Ned made yet another post. And interestingly, this is not his first reply, it's actually the second. And this time, Regina hadn't even said anything new. This post was effectively a response to a void. It seemed to be a continuation of his previous message. In it, he brought up past events, things that should have been long dead and buried, events that in any normal scenario wouldn't have needed attention right now. And yet, here it was, a long, detailed post full of claims, reminders of history, and narratives that should have remained in the past. Regina hadn't yet formally begun fighting for custody of her children. Nothing significant was happening on that front. So there was no reason for a public escalation of this magnitude, at least not yet. Now enter Sammy, Regina's older brother. Naturally, he was angered by what he saw, he was frustrated, and rightly so. This was something that was supposed to be resolved long ago, something that should have stayed buried until, if at all, the time came for the custody fight. Instead, here was Ned resurfacing old claims, publicizing them, and stirring the pot without provocation. Sammy felt compelled to speak out, and he did. Now let's take a look at what he actually said. He said, "Ned's communication team, keep my family name off your posts. Focus on problems in your constituency. I will not keep quiet and watch you constantly try to dent her name. Saying there is no evidence of domestic violence is hilarious. Now 2026 be this. Let's focus on positivity. If a woman says she no do again, it no mean say she go be your enemy. This is my candid advice. 1. Accept Christ as your personal Lord and Savior. 2. Make peace with your soul. And 3. Find a therapist. These words are not just a statement, they are a declaration, a warning, a challenge, and a boundary all at once. Sammy is standing firm, asserting his family's dignity and refusing to let external narratives redefine them. Now, some people would want to argue that this outburst, this public response from Sammy, is the reason for what happened next. That his refusal to stay quiet is what led to his arrest. But I have my reservations about that. And I have many reasons why I don't believe that this alone explains what we are seeing now. Because if these were simply about Sammy speaking out, then the response would have stopped with Sammy, but it didn't. Not only was Sammy arrested, Tiny Devil Ann was also arrested, and according to Regina, arrest warrants were issued for other family members as well, all tied to an allegation of $40,000. So the question becomes, what is really happening here? Because as you already know, on this channel, we don't stop at the surface of what is being said. We don't just repeat accusations or react emotionally. We look beyond that into patterns, into timing, and into the psychology behind actions. And let me be very clear, these are not facts. This is not a verdict. What we are about to do is propose possibilities based on observable patterns of behavior to understand what could be happening beneath the surface. The bedrock of the problem we are seeing now goes far beyond arrests or accusations. To understand it, we have to step back and look at everything Regina Daniels has faced. All the allegations, all the attempts to bring her down. In other scenarios, in similar situations, women in her position might have reacted differently. There are cases when someone facing intense pressure and accusation would retreat, would back down, maybe even return to the relationship or situation that they left, hoping for peace. And it seems plausible that there was a similar expectation here. An expectation perhaps held by some that Regina would come back, that she would crawl back on her feet, humbled or submissive. But that didn't happen. She didn't bend, she didn't retreat, she didn't allow the narrative to control her. She moved forward. And here's where the psychology comes in. When someone doesn't want to lose a person for reasons only they fully know, the thought of them leaving, of building a life without them, or being with someone else can be intolerable. There may be many reasons: their beauty, their character, their influence, or simply the bond they shared. Whatever it is, the idea of loss becomes unbearable. And when loss becomes unbearable, the mind often searches for ways to prevent it, to hold on. There is a word for that, and it's called leverage. Leverage is having something to hold on to someone for. Leverage is having something you can hold against someone, not necessarily to destroy them, but to influence how they act, the choices they make, and the direction they go. And this is the word we need to sit with today. Because when we begin to examine this situation through the lens of leverage, certain things start to make sense. Not as facts, but as possible explanations. So now let's take a step back and look at some of the leverage that may have existed in this situation. Again, not as accusations, not as conclusions, but as observations based on what has played out publicly. When we begin to look at leverage in this situation, the first point of pressure was Sammy's first arrest. His detention wasn't just a random act. It was a strategic move, a way to influence Regina to see if she would be compelled to act or even return. At that time, there may have been an expectation that this leverage would work. People might have imagined that a woman in such a situation would bend under the pressure of seeing a loved one, especially a brother she was so close to, in custody. But it didn't go according to plan. Other people got involved and eventually Sammy was released. The case itself may still be in court, but the immediate impact of the leverage had failed. Regina did not come back. She continued with her life, maintaining her independence despite the pressure. The second, far more significant leverage was access to her children. From the moment she left the marriage, the court had ruled against her, according to public statements, citing alleged drug-related issues. She was not permitted to regain access until specific conditions were met. These conditions were detailed and restrictive. Therapy and rehabilitation had to be conducted under programs within his supervision, including locations he controlled, such as he mentioned Asokoro and one other place I can't remember right now. Every element of her access to her children, the programs, the oversight, the location, was designed to remain under his control. For any mother, access to her children is one of the strongest bonds imaginable. Many would assume this leverage would force compliance, but it didn't. Regina left Nigeria, started living her life abroad with her brother, And even amidst rumors, whether true or not, of a new relationship, she did not yield. Then came the moment that shattered this leverage. Regina went to a reputable hospital in the UK for a drug test. The result came back clean. She was free. All the conditions that had previously restricted her access, every program under supervision, every location requirement had been invalidated. With this barrier removed, she was now in a position to fight for custody of her children, free from the control that had once held sway over her decisions. This is the context in which the recent escalation, the new arrest and warrants must be understood. Each action is now part of a pattern, and when we view it through the lens of leverage, the sequence and intent start to make sense. Now, with the biggest leverage, access to her children, effectively challenged, a very different situation emerges. The pathway is open for Regina to fight for custody. There is nothing legally or practically standing in her way anymore. She can now have access to her children without having to return to a situation she's already left behind. Do you see what that means? She doesn't have to be with the person who once held all the cards over her. Every obstacle that could have forced her to comply has been removed, and that, of course, creates a problem for the other party. After weeks of quiet, after months of issue that seemed to have died down, just when it looked like the story had been put to rest, everything comes back into the play. Ned has said he didn't want Regina back. He had claimed he didn't care about her, and Regina herself had clearly moved on, living her life in the UK, posting her own updates, building her independence. Then, out of the blue, the news hits again. Sammy has been arrested again, and not just Sammy, Tiny Devil Ann has also been arrested. And according to Regina, warrants have been issued for other family members as well. What we are seeing here is very clearly a person trying to hold on by any means possible. And now the claims, $40,000 allegedly stolen, 2 arrests, multiple family members involved, for $40,000. Think about that for a second. Regina left the house in October 2025. The allegation didn't surface then. It comes months later. How does that even make sense? Even if we imagine it is true that $40,000 was taken, why was it not part of the first arrest? Why wasn't it raised in court when the initial cases were unfolding? Why wait months and then suddenly present it as a reason to detain multiple people? The logic doesn't hold. It's very confusing. It's almost laughable because it doesn't make sense that someone would continue to dig up accusations from months ago just to hold on to someone who has clearly moved forward. The timing, the escalation, the narrative flipping, it all points to desperation, not reason. At this point, all we can do is just observe, analyze, and try to understand the pattern. The accusation is now public, it will probably be taken to court, and the immediate effect is clear. It is an attempt to draw Regina back to Nigeria. She's in the UK, yet these actions are trying to pull her back into a space where control can be exerted. Who knows what would unfold if she returns? And there is another layer here. Previously, allies stood with her like Doris Ogala, who supported her during her first round of issues. But Doris is facing her own issues now, so it's unclear if she would come forward, if she would help. If no one does, it may fall to Regina herself to respond, and we hope she doesn't feel compelled to return. Because until the custody battle formally begins, it doesn't make sense for her to pull herself back into this environment. So this is where we are. What we have done today is not just to repeat breaking news or gossip. We've tried to look at patterns, analyze motivations, and explore the psychology behind the moves being made behind closed doors. But this is not a one-sided conversation, and I want to hear from you. Do you see this the way I do, or do you have a different perspective? Drop your thoughts in the comments and let's discuss.